Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. Want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a very big lineup of news to brief you all on today. Today's date is August 1st, 2025, and it's Friday. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and I hope you're all having a great day. Hope you're ready for your weekend as well. Lots of news to get into with this update, and we're going to start out with some reports from Vladimir Putin today, the Russian president, as he came out responding to Trump's ultimatum to end this war by August 8th, which is next Friday. If not, Russia and its trading partners are going to be facing some very steep tariffs that could potentially force Russia to end this war. So we're going to start out with this new report here on your screen. Putin responds to Trump's threat to end the war by August 8th or face tariffs. Putin said on Friday that Moscow hoped for more peace talks with Ukraine, but the momentum of the war was in its favor, signaling no shift in his stance despite a looming deadline. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys multiple clips today as Vladimir Putin met with Alexander Lukashenko, the president of Belarus. They met for a meeting to talk about a range of issues between Belarus and Russia, also responding to Trump's ultimatum today. They met on Volym Island, which is an island just north of St. Petersburg inside of Russia, up in northwestern Russia. And yeah, lots of different things I want to show you guys. But for the most part, what I'm kind of getting out of Vladimir Putin today is he's kind of just shrugging off this whole ultimatum from the U.S. He's not really too worried about it, but he did respond to Trump in multiple ways. So I'm going to show you guys some different reports today, and we're going to talk about this. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Lots to show you here today. We'll jump on over to X with Nexta. Breaking Putin response to Trump's ultimatum. Trump's ultimatum expires in a week, so Putin decided to pray alongside Lukashenko and gave his answer to the U.S. spoiler. The Kremlin's position hasn't changed, and they will fight until the end. So yeah, that's kind of what we're getting here. Is Putin's, with all these different statements, just kind of indicating they're not ready to end this war, even though they're getting these major threats from the U.S. So it says key statements. Moscow is willing to wait if Kiev believes that now is not the time for negotiations. That was stated by Putin today. The conditions remain the same. Ukraine must fully cede 4 of its regions and Crimea to Russia, recognize their occupation as legitimate, and refrain from joining NATO. We've heard that many times, and Putin came out stating that again today. And these will be kind of repetitive information, but I'm going to show you guys the actual video footage of Putin making these statements along with Alexander Lukashenko today. Joke of the day, Russia's political regime, is based on the Constitution, which makes it legal, unlike Ukraine. Also, Russia has produced the first serial Archnik complex. The system has already been deployed in the military and will be handed over to Belarus by the end of the year. I've got video footage of that today as well, talking about the Archnik. And then finally, Lukashenko also had his say on the deadlines for Putin 50, 60, 10 days. That is not how politics works. If Trump wants peace, he needs to get involved carefully and thoroughly. This is a military conflict. You can't just call the shots, especially with the nuclear power. It's simply laughable. Yeah, Lukashenko actually comments on Trump's deadlines here, where he's been changing it numerous times. He started out with like 50 days, then he jumped down to 10 to 12 days. Now we're here in 10 days. So for sure, August 8th looks like it's going to be the deadline here for Putin to end the war. So this was video footage coming out for the meeting today. Here's Alexander Lukashenko right here, and then we've got Putin as they were actually praying today at one of the churches over here on Volym Island. Okay, so we're going to jump into some other reports now with more information. From Max 25, Putin wants an air truce, but Ukraine is not doing it. Let Zalinsky stop everything so that flying UAVs stop falling on people's heads, says Lukashenko. Also, they stated Ukrainians demand the impossible within the framework of the settlement. That's what Lukashenko said today. Belarus has begun the formation of a new brigade of Special Operation Forces of the Army, which will be based in the Gomel region, which borders Ukraine. Lukashenko also stated that today. And then the Ukrainian government is not very well informed about what is happening on the ground. That was what Putin stated. And then finally, EU and Russia would be a power stronger than China, says Lukashenko. I thought that was interesting. I mean, imagine the EU and Russia teaming up together especially against China. I can't ever imagine that, considering the way that the relations are between the EU and Russia right now. So there's just a few other statements that were coming out. Now we've got some video footage. So let's start out with this one here from Vicegrad24. Lukashenko said that Ukrainians should run to Putin and beg him for negotiations. Otherwise, in a few months, the Russians would seize Ukraine and move on. And then it says here, not seize, but return. It is ours, Putin corrected Lukashenko. Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And look at Lukashenko's response whenever Putin comes out and corrects him and says, no, we're not seizing territory inside of Ukraine. We're actually taking back what is rightfully ours. 30 seconds. Take a look.
Украина сегодня бегом должна просить его, Владимир Владимирович, давайте сядем за стол переговоров, давайте договоримся. В противном случае, через несколько, там, месяц, полтора, два, не знаю, там вообще даже оборонительных сооружений не останется. Россияне все это потихонечку отгрызут, захватят и пойдут дальше, отвоюют.
Вернут.
Ну, вернут, да. Украина сегодня бегом.
All right, so as we can see here, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, doubling down on his statements that he has made in the past, where he claims that Ukraine is actually part of Russian territory. And, we do know that Russia wants to continue on this invasion into Ukraine and probably well beyond the territories they're currently fighting for right now. So I thought that was pretty crazy seeing Putin come out and state that once again today. Let's move on to another one now from Vicegrad24. Breaking: Putin responds to Trump's ultimatum. Disappointments arise from excessive expectations, said Putin, and he added that he does not intend to resolve issues in public. Yeah, about a 1-minute clip here. Putin just pretty much saying that they do want to resolve things with this war, but he wants to do it behind closed doors, and then kind of commenting on Trump recently. Trump stating that he's very disappointed with Vladimir Putin, and he's saying it's due to high expectations of this war that that Trump wants, and that's the reason why that he's disappointed. So take a look at this.
Что касается каких-то разочарований со стороны кого бы то ни было, то все разочарования, они возникают от избыточных ожиданий. Это известное общее правило. Но для того, чтобы подойти к решению вопроса мирным путем, нужно вести обстоятельные разговоры. И не на публике, а это делать нужно спокойно, в тиши, переговорного процесса. И именно для этого мы предложили создать 3 группы, о которых вы упомянули. В целом реакция украинской стороны была позитивной. Мы договорились, что мы можем вести такие переговоры без камеры, без всякого политического треска, в спокойном режиме и искать компромиссы. Они пока не заработали, эта работа пока не началась, но в целом, повторяю, первая реакция, как нам показалось, украинской стороны была положительной. Поэтому мы рассчитываем на то, что этот процесс будет запущен.
Okay, so now that Putin's coming out saying this, I wonder if at some point we actually might see a meeting between the leaders. I think Zalinsky was coming out calling for that again today. I believe I have a report on that towards the end of this video. That Zalinsky wants to meet Putin directly. We've been hearing that there could be some sort of arrangement on that, and maybe they might do that at some point without any cameras around. And I wonder if that's where they might try to settle some things. But yeah, that's what Putin said here today. Let's move on to another one now. Vicegrad24, dictator Lukashenko decides to teach Trump how to conduct U.S. policy. He says this is not how you do politics. If he wants peace, he must engage carefully and thoroughly. It's impossible to dictate anything, especially to a nuclear power, Russia. This is just laughable. Here's another 1-minute clip. Take a look at this.
Хотим. Поэтому я вот публично говорил заявление и нашего общего друга, за которого мы так переживали, Дональда Трампа. Я помню наши переживания, чтобы он победил и так далее. Там 50, 60, 10 дней. Это тоже так политика не делается. Если он мира хочет, он должен подключаться аккуратно, основательно. Это военное столкновение. И указать там не получится, тем более ядерной державе. Слушайте, это просто смех вызывает. Вы знаете, недавно встречался, я Владимир Владимирович говорил с американцем. Я ему открыто это сказал. Это его близкие, друзья. Вы, говорю, президенту, скажите, что аккуратно это все делать. И можно договориться. Все время опять воздушное перемирие. Я говорю, да Россия в этом заинтересована, и президент Путин. Но вы же этого не хотите. Скажите Зеленскому, пускай на это идет, чтобы не было вот этих летающих аппаратов и на голову людям не падали.
All right, so what I get from this, from Alexander Lukashenko here, is him kind of just reiterating the same claims that the Kremlin states that, no pressure, no amount of pressure or sanctions, threats, anything like that is going to really force Russia to end this war, especially considering that they're a nuclear power. So that's kind of what I see here, Lukashenko just stating that, they need to sit down and work this out. But, when we do see negotiations happening between Ukraine and Russia, all Russia's really doing is just making some claims towards Ukraine that we know Ukraine will never agree to. That's why we're not seeing any kind of settlement here of this war. But we do know that Ukraine has come out many times and called for a 30-day ceasefire, and they have actually agreed to one, an unconditional ceasefire in the past. Russia still, till this day, has not done that. Now for next up, Putin threatens with Archnik and claims he'll deploy the new weapon in Belarus. Putin announced that the first serially produced Archnik system has been completed and will be deployed in Belarus by the end of the year. According to him, a location has already been chosen and preparations are underway. However, this claim remains unverified. The BBC reports that there is no independent confirmation that Archnik has already actually entered serial production. Previously, on November 21st, Russia used this system for the first time to strike the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. So the Archnik medium-range ballistic missile, we heard a few months back from Putin that this thing was going to be going into serial production. Allegedly, they're stating that it's ready to go and they're going to start setting it up and deploying it inside of Belarus. This is something that Alexander Lukashenko has stated in the past as well, that they would be receiving these. Just a quick clip talking about that.
Первое, что хочу в этой связи сказать. У нас произведен первый серийный комплекс Орешника. Первая серийная ракета. Да. И она поступила в войска. Теперь серия заработала. Первое. Второе. Наши специалисты, и белорусские военные специалисты, и российские, выбрали место для будущих позиций. И сейчас идет работа по подготовке этих позиций. Так что, скорее всего, мы до конца года этот вопрос закроем. Первое, что хочу...
All right, so again, this has been something we've been hearing about for a while, that Russia was going to be deploying these over to Belarus. This happens to be true. This is a little concerning because could we see this being deployed onto the battlefield inside of Ukraine, especially with a legitimate warhead, as the last one was actually inert and did not cause any damage, but it was fired into the city of Dnipro in Ukraine back in November. So we'll see how that plays out, but Russia claiming today they now have these ready to go and have been deployed into the military. Here's another one, Vicegrad 24. Putin claims that Russia has not lost a single life in vain. Meanwhile, according to the latest confirmed data, nearly 120,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in the war with Ukraine. Yeah, take a look at this, 20 seconds.
Это общая заслуга. В этом смысле у нас ни одной потери нет напрасной. Это вот в целом. Ну, а динамика понятна. Вот совсем недавно слышали, взят новый населенный пункт. Часов Яр, это достаточно большой населенный пункт. Это общая заслуга.
All right, so just a quick clip of Vladimir Putin here stating that no Russian soldier's life has been lost or taken in vain, that, every single soldier that has been lost was sacrificed for good reasons for Russia, and that's why they're attacking Ukraine and whatnot. We have heard Putin state things like this in the past. Now, Anton Yushchenko, Putin says the conditions for settlement in Ukraine outlined in June 2024 remain in force. And these conditions are Ukrainian troops leave Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia regions. Ukraine promises not to join NATO. Ukraine remains a neutral state. Putin also said that no death of a Russian soldier has been unnecessary, claimed that Archnik has been put into serial production. So we know about that. But we're going to talk about this information here, talking about the conditions for a settlement that were agreed by Russia back in June 2024. Just a quick clip, 9 seconds.
Да, эти условия, безусловно, остались прежними. Это же не условия, а цели. Я сформулировал цели России. Да, эти...
All right, so this confirms that Vladimir Putin's position remains unchanged in this war. They still want Ukraine to pull away from the 4 territories that they're currently fighting for right now. That includes Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson regions of Ukraine. We know Ukraine is not ever going to do that. They're fighting for every inch, and they've been building some massive trenches and defensive positions behind the front lines in many of these regions. Ukraine is preparing to fight on. They're not ready to give these up at all. So now let's move on to some attacks inside of Russia last night. We'll start off here with Max 25. Massive UAV attack on Russia and occupied territories of Ukraine. So you can see here there was a lot of drones going into Russia overnight, and a majority of the reports we have is actually out of the Rostov Oblast once again. Not sure if Ukraine was going after any railway systems because they've been doing that a lot over the last week, but we do have some reports in the city of Taganrog, which is going to be down here in the southwestern portion of the Rostov Oblast, close to the Sea of Azov. And we have reports of major explosions over there, and there's lots of Russian military industries over there. There's an airfield over there also, and that's allegedly where we had most of the explosions taking place. But you can see kind of just drones going everywhere, also up here towards Moscow and other regions of Russia up here, and also drones heading down towards Crimea overnight and towards the Kerch Bridge. So I have some information here from Astra. Drone debris lands on Taganrog shipyard and Rodeo Novskaya, if I'm saying that right, oil pumping station after today's UAV attack in Rostov region. Another likely target of the attack was the Taganrog Yuzhny military airfield, which serves as a test base for the Berev Taganrog Aviation Scientific Technical Complex. As previously reported by Astra, drones attacked the Rostov region overnight on August 1st, according to sources in the Russian Emergency Ministry. Debris landed on the territory of the Taganrog shipyard. The extent of the damage remains unknown. Drones were also found on the grounds of Rodeo Novskaya oil pumping station, part of the Sukhodolnaya Rodeo Novskaya pipeline. That's a long name, sorry guys. Additionally, residents of the village of Novobesergenevka near Taganrog reported finding drone debris in multiple locations overnight. The village is located near the Taganrog Yuzhny military airfield, the main test site to the Berev Taganrog Aviation Scientific Technical Complex. Okay, so lots of big words there. So yeah, these are just kind of like some images. Here's like the airfield that's located down near Taganrog, again, down in southwestern portion of the Rostov Oblast. These were some of the targets that Ukraine could have been going after. Here's like an oil pumping station just right on the edge of the Sea of Azov. So I can't confirm any major hits over here, but we did have a lot of explosions down in Taganrog, and this has been an area that Ukraine has attacked heavily before. Here's a couple of videos also. Max 25, Taganrog UAV's attack on Berev Aircraft Design Bureau. So this is like a factory that produces Russian military aircraft. That's also located in Taganrog. It could have been the target of the attack overnight, but we have not been able to confirm whether it was actually hit. I've got a couple of videos of explosions over here, so we'll show you these real quick. That's pretty much the end of that clip, but we can see a Ukrainian drone smashed into something over here, but it's really hard to tell what it hit as there's a tree in the way and also a huge building there in the background. Here's one more video coming up.
Сейчас будет бабахнуть. Летит, да, куда-то летит.
All right, so it might have been a little hard to tell what you were looking at here, but at the very start of the video, it sounded like a massive explosion, and it could have also been some sort of missile attack also, because Ukraine has used Neptune missiles to attack this area before. I think we've also potentially seen storm shadows that are heading down this direction at some point in the past. So to me, it kind of sounded like a missile attack, but it could have just been an echo from a major explosion over here. Could have been due to a drone strike. So you guys let me know what you think happened there. Move on to another one now from Raging 545, a Russian base located approximately 20 kilometers from the Dnipro River in the occupied Kherson region was hit by Ukrainian forces. Russian channels online claim a number of Russians killed and wounded in the strike. So down in occupied Kherson region of Ukraine, we had Ukraine carrying out a strike on a Russian base down here. So here's a video to show you guys real quick also. right, so many sources on X today were indicating that this was a Russian base. It almost looks like a market or something, but maybe the Russians were using it. We do know that a lot of civilian type infrastructure is used as Russian bases. We just had a report yesterday there was some sort of hotel or resort that was being attacked by Ukraine as well, allegedly that had Russian soldiers inside of it. So it looks like we had a major hit here, and according to this report, we have several Russian soldiers that may have been killed or wounded in this attack. Now from Bliskovka, today the enemy attacked the energy infrastructure facilities of the Sumy region again, according to the regional military administration. As a result of the attack, some consumers in Sumy district were left without electricity. Specialists are already working to restore it. So yeah, it looks like the Russians did this again. They just reported this about like a week ago that Russia had attacked some energy infrastructure in the Sumy region. Looks like the Russians have done that again as of today. You can see the date here, August 1st. So now from Visioner, Poland is preparing swarms of sea drones for war with Russia in the Baltic Sea. The Poles decided to copy the tactics of the Ukrainian GUR and SBU. Currently, the country's special forces are testing American ultra-cheap sea drones from Havoc AI. They are capable of carrying about 136 kilograms of payload and are equipped with solar panels, which are probably intended to increase the range. So that's a huge report today that Poland apparently is testing some new sea drones in the Baltic Sea as they're preparing for war with Russia in the future. They want to gain control of the Baltic Sea utilizing these new sea drones, as they've seen that Ukraine has been able to effectively use their Sea Baby drones to control the Black Sea, down near Crimea and chased out the Russian Navy. So Poland really upping their use with these drones now inside the Baltic Sea. They're going to be carrying out lots of testing operations with these new drones. I'm not sure if these are the exact ones or not. It could just be used for just kind of illustration here, but allegedly it's going to be some type of new sea drones that the Polish army is going to be using, or Navy that is. Now for Max 25, Germany will send 2 more Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine, thanks to a deal with the U.S. that ensures faster replacements for Berlin. Launchers will arrive in days, full systems in months. Pistorius says Germany can initially support Ukraine with launchers and then with additional Patriot system components. Okay, this is big news as well. We've been hearing a lot from the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius that Ukraine was going to be receiving several of these Patriot air defense systems. So they're saying they're going to be sending 2 more of these systems over to Ukraine here very soon, and within days, some of these launchers will be arriving. So very, very good news in terms of air defense for Ukraine. Now from St. Javelin, Russia's Far East nuclear submarine base, Rybachi, if I'm saying that right, appears to have been damaged by the tsunami that swept the country's Pacific coast on Wednesday. According to the Telegraph, a section of one pier has bent away from its original position, possibly indicating that it was detached from its moorings. Heavy damage can be seen in the port of Severokurilsk, around twice as far as the earthquake's epicenter as Avansha Bay. So here's a report today. Russian nuclear submarine base damaged by tsunami, satellite images reveal. So here's one of the images they were able to pull up. We talked about this on the day of the earthquake that took place in far eastern Russia. It was an 8.8 magnitude earthquake, and it caused some tsunami waves that were striking even like Japan and Hawaii. It was nothing too crazy, but there was some pretty heavy waves that were caused by this. And there was reports that this nuclear submarine base could have been hit and damaged due to the earthquake and some of the tsunami waves that were striking, Russia's far east over here, some of the coastlines. I think it's on the peninsula of Kamchatka is the name of it. And allegedly this new satellite image showing that one of these piers have been damaged, possibly due to the tsunami waves that were caused by this earthquake. So that's pretty crazy news. Not sure if they took on any other damage, but they were able to locate this satellite image showing damage to a pier. All right, now for Max 25, Russian Gerbera UAV, which crossed into Lithuania from Belarus, was located at Gai Zuni, if I'm saying that right, training ground. Authorities have launched an investigation. All right, so it's been 5 days now that this Russian drone that crossed from the Belarusian border into NATO territory in the country of Lithuania that actually traveled over the capital of Vilnius. We reported that several days ago, early this week. Allegedly, they just barely found this drone. They've been looking for it for about 5 days now. Here's a picture that came out from Lithuania today showing this drone that had crashed And now they're investigating where this thing came from. It looks to me like a Russian Gerbera drone. We have talked about these before, and the videos that were coming out at the time definitely looked like a Gerbera drone. So yeah, it looks like Lithuania has been able to locate this. We'll see what they come out with some statements here later in regards to this crash. Now from Kiev Post, a deadlier, faster, and visible. The drones used in Thursday's deadly strike on Kiev were faster, harder to detect, and more precise, raising fears that Russia has entered a new, more lethal phase of its air war. Okay, so I want to talk about this because yesterday we weren't able to cover it, but allegedly a lot of the drones that were going into Kiev just yesterday in that massive attack on the capital in Ukraine, many of these drones were UAV jet drones, okay? They weren't just your standard propeller-driven drones, and they were flying much faster. They were harder to detect and take down. And Ukraine's government is warning about this, that they don't have the means right now to shoot a lot of these down. That it requires very sophisticated systems to detect them and also intercept them. So this is not good news. We have been hearing this week that Russia could be transitioning over to rocket-based drones and no longer be using the propeller-driven ones, which are much slower and easier to shoot down. So that's not good news. This is what Kiev Post was reporting today. Now for Max 25, 31 people have already died in the Russian strike on Kiev. The bodies of 3 more people were unearthed from under the rubble of a house in the Zvyotoshinsky district. Sorry guys, might be butchering that. This was a district out of Kiev. Speaking of that attack yesterday, looks like some people were locating a body that was trapped under some rubble. There was actually a home that completely collapsed. You can see here, it was a high-rise residential building or apartment building that was hit, I believe, by a missile, completely collapsing. There was like dozens of people trapped under the rubble. There was even a poor young boy that was pulled from the rubble and he did not make it. Yeah, so allegedly it's gone up to 31 people now who have died in the collapse of this building in Kiev. So just horrible news coming out today. Very sad to hear about that. Now, Max 25. Ukraine's goal is to end the war with Russia this year, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Sibia says. So we'll see if that happens to be the case, but this is what Sibia was stating today. They hope to end this war by the end of this year, okay? So that's just a few months away. Let's hope that it does come to an end safely. We'll see what the Trump administration decides to do next week. They're going to try to put some major pressure on Russia, and let's see if it happens to work. Now for Max 25, Ukraine proposes to move from exchanging statements and meetings at the technical level to the level of conversation between leaders. America proposed this. Ukraine supported it. Russia's readiness is needed, Zalinsky says. So there's that information I was talking about earlier that Zalinsky allegedly was stating today that he wants to meet directly with Vladimir Putin. Now, let's see if Russia wants to do that, because so far, Putin has not wanted to meet with Zalinsky at all. He's never really come out and stated that he's willing to do that. The most we've seen is just low-level delegation meetings between Ukraine and Russia. But let's see if we can see some sort of meeting get set up, possibly even with Trump here in the near future. We have heard that that could be a possibility. So let's see if Zelensky and Putin end up meeting to discuss an end to this war here very soon. Now from next day, U.S. to produce AMRAM missiles for Ukraine and allies worth up to $3.5 billion, according to the Pentagon today. The U.S. Department of Defense has signed a contract with Raytheon Technologies for the production of advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles, as well as telemetry systems, spare parts, and technical support. Ukraine, Lithuania, Israel, Poland, Finland, Germany, Japan, and other countries will receive the supplies. The work is expected to be completed by the third quarter of 2031. So here's a statement that came out from the U.S. Department of Defense. We're not going to read this, kind of long. You guys can screenshot that and check that out if you want. But yeah, these AMRAM missiles, or AIM missiles, I think is what they're also known as. These are air-launched missiles that can be attached to like F-16s and lots of other different types of aircraft. And Ukraine uses these, I believe, to shoot down incoming Shahed drones, and looks like Ukraine will be part of this contract. They're going to be receiving a lot of these AMRAM missiles from the U.S. here in the future, so that's very good to see that. I actually have lots of reports today talking about major support for Ukraine starting to come out from the U.S. Here's another one from Visioner. According to Reuters, the U.S. Senate Appropriations Committee has approved $1 billion in military aid for Ukraine as part of the $852 billion U.S. defense bill. The Senate Appropriations Committee passed the $852 billion legislation for the 2026 fiscal year, which includes $1 billion in assistance for Ukraine. This move goes against Trump's demand to eliminate direct Ukraine funding from the Pentagon's budget. The committee approved the bill with strong bipartisan support, 26 in favor, 3 against. The aid includes $800 million for Ukraine's Security Assistance Initiative, USAI, and $225 million for the Baltic Security Initiative, both aimed at supporting Ukraine's defense against Russia. The Senate's version of the bill must now be reconciled with the House version before being sent to Trump, who can either sign it into law or veto it. So let's see if Trump either signs this bill or vetoes it. But yeah, allegedly part of the U.S.'s defense bill that's coming out this year. It's an $852 billion defense bill. $1 billion of that is going to be included for Ukraine. So that's very good to see. We really are starting to see a shift with the U.S. right now, and they're really starting to help out the Ukrainians. But I think it'll come down to whether Trump vetoes this or he actually signs it and puts it into law. So very big report today. Now from Savchenko Vladimir, a bill for over $50 billion in aid to Ukraine has been registered in the U.S. Senate, The Hill reports. Yeah, you heard that right. $50 billion in aid for Ukraine. This is huge. $30 billion direct military aid until 2027, $3 billion foreign military funding, $6 billion a year limit on the transfer of resources from Pentagon warehouses, $600 million for law enforcement and anti-corruption programs, and $50 million for the investigation of war crimes. Yeah, that was announced today in the Senate. There is a bill that has been registered, and if it gets passed, that's $50 billion in support to Ukraine from the U.S. It also says right here the U.S. Senate has proposed to allocate $54.6 billion to Ukraine over the next 2 years using frozen Russian assets. Okay, so that will be through the use of Russian assets that are frozen in banks in Europe. So that is very big news. Let's see if that happens to get passed in the future. There's lots of major support starting to come out from the U.S. That could really help out Ukraine in this fight against Russia. Now for Max 25, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Kuwait are preparing to replace Russian oil on the market after the imposition of U.S. secondary sanctions, according to Reuters. Okay, this is very big. Also, we've been hearing a lot, even yesterday, that India is starting to pull away from Russian oil right now. That was reported by Reuters yesterday also. Yeah, allegedly, we've got some Middle Eastern countries who are major powerhouses producing crude oil and whatnot. They're preparing to replace Russian oil on the market. So is that going to cause a major implosion of the Russian economy at some point? Let's see what happens coming next week when Trump decides to put these tariffs onto Russia and some of its trading partners. So big update today. Now for Vision, or big news, according to Bloomberg, 4 Russian oil-loaded tankers are stopped near the coast of India due to sanctions. Local oil refineries are already looking for alternative sources of oil supply. Russia supplies more than 1/3 of India's oil imports, but the latest sanctions imposed by the EU and the 25% trade tariffs imposed by Donald Trump have forced New Delhi to start developing diversification plans for oil refineries such as Reliance and BPCL. So yeah, allegedly we've got 4 oil tankers that coming from Russia. Looks like these right here, 1, 2, 3, and 4 possibly, sitting off the coast of India and not dropping off their oil due to sanctions. It looks like India is very afraid to take any of these in as they don't want to be hit by these tariffs soon. And we did report yesterday that multiple of their refineries inside of India are already looking for other sources of oil right now, and crude oil. They're actually looking towards the Middle East, like the UAE, for example, and also some nations in West Africa. So that is very big news. It looks like these threats of tariffs and sanctions are already working, at least to stop India from purchasing Russian oil. So we'll see how this situation develops, but there's been a lot of talk about India lately. Here's another one from Max 25. India's largest oil refinery has snapped up millions of barrels of crude from the U.S. and UAE, facing pressure from U.S. and Europe over its purchases from Russia, according to Bloomberg. Oil Corp bought 5 million barrels of U.S. crude on top of 2 million barrels of supplies from Abu Dhabi. So Abu Dhabi, I believe, is in the UAE. And this is huge. Apparently, this major oil company in India bought 5 million barrels of U.S. crude. So they're starting to move towards purchasing oil from the U.S. now, and also out of the Middle East, possibly even Africa. They're looking around where they're going to be buying this from. But this is another big sign that they're ready to pull away from Russian oil. And this situation with India is really developing very quickly, so I'll continue to follow it. We'll see if we get more updates, but that was a new report from Bloomberg today. All right, now from World Source News 24/7, we've got a post here from Trump coming out today on Truth Social, and I want to read this to you guys. It says, I've just been informed that almost 20,000 Russian soldiers died this month in the ridiculous war with Ukraine. Russia has lost 112,500 soldiers since the beginning of the year. That is lots of unnecessary death. Ukraine, however, has also suffered greatly. They have lost approximately 8,000 soldiers since January 1st, 2025. That number does not include their missing. Ukraine has also lost civilians, but in small numbers, as Russian rockets crash into Kiev and other Ukrainian locales. This is a war that should have never happened. This is Biden's war, not Trump's. I'm just here to see if I can stop it. So Trump kind of just reporting on the amount of soldiers that Russia has lost. He's saying that Russia's lost 112,500 soldiers since the beginning of this year, 20 of them actually dying in the last month. So I'm not sure if he means by death. I'm assuming he does because he says here that's a lot of unnecessary deaths. So he's saying 112,000 soldiers died since the beginning of this year. I mean, that is a lot of soldiers losing their lives. Ukraine, he's stating here 8,000 soldiers have died in the war. Doesn't include their missing. But yeah, just another statement from Trump. Just wanted to share this with you guys. I wonder if he's responding to, Vladimir Putin coming out this morning also and kind of just shrugging off this whole threat of tariffs and whatnot. So let me know what you think about his statement here. Now for Max 25, Ukrainian air defense shot down and suppressed 44 out of 72 Russian drones. So 72 drones going into Ukraine overnight. It looks like they shot down more than half, at least 44, either shot down or suppressed by electronic warfare. We did have some destruction inside of Ukraine overnight, but for the most part, wasn't too many crazy reports of lots of damage due to these drone attacks. And very low numbers again. I wonder if by the weekend we're going to see another massive attack on Ukraine soon. Now for Kiev Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of August 1st, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In our final update, Russia's losses as of August 1st, 940 troops, 2 AFVs, 72 vehicles and fuel tanks, 1 tank, 33 artillery systems, and 163 UAVs, and also 3 cruise missiles. So still very low numbers here across the board, not major fluctuations again. I feel like tank and AFV numbers have been so low lately, same with the vehicles and fuel tanks. Troop numbers right about the same, 900,000, what we've been seeing for a while. Same with artillery systems. Not too much changing with these numbers here. So I want to thank you guys very much for being here for today's update. I know it was a longer update today. There was just so much information, especially with all these posts coming out regarding Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko today. So I hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you very much for being here. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.